Welcome to Cat's Home Chat. Hope you're having a great Friday so far. I'm going to excuse myself up front. Got little frogs in my throat here, but I got my lemon tea, so we're good. Oh, I've already got my guest on there. I forgot to take her off, but I'm not going to introduce her quite yet. But if you are a woman, a mom, and possibly in an industry that is male-dominated, my guest happens to be in commercial real estate as well as law. She's an esquire. She doesn't use that term, but I'm going to use it for her because she spent a lot of years going to school, learning a lot of stuff. So if you are, again, a woman, a mom, or you know someone who has or is working in a male-dominated field, you want to stay tuned because Ms. MarJuana is going to share with us the challenges, the triumphs, the tips and tricks, what she may have told her younger self that she knows now but didn't know then. And so without further ado, welcome, MarJuana. Thank you so much for joining me. MarJuana and I met, over 2.5 years ago at a Women's Council Realtor event, and I was so impressed with her and always looking for powerful, professional, real women who juggle family and being an entrepreneur, solopreneur. So MarJuana, welcome so much, and tell our viewers a little bit about your background, your tribe, which are and then your areas of expertise before we get going.
Well, thank you for having me. I am really honored to join you this morning and honored to join everyone and tell them about my story. Give you a quick rundown. I'm 39 years old now. My husband and I have been married. We just had our 15th year anniversary a couple of weeks ago. We have 5 children. The oldest is my stepson. He's 16. And we have a 13-year-old son, a 10-year-old daughter, 8-year-old son, and a 13-month-old daughter.
Wow.
We're pretty busy. Kids are involved in all kinds of sports, so we move around a lot, but we are super blessed. Wouldn't give any of them back for sure. On the career side, I am a real estate attorney and a real estate developer, and I'm really what you would probably call a serial entrepreneur. Always looking to start a new business. My poor husband is like, "What do you got? What are you making us do now?" But he's super supportive, and that's kind of just been the story of my adult life. Born and raised in Port Arthur, Texas. Attended college at Texas Southern on a full academic scholarship. Took a year off, went back to law school, got married in law school, got pregnant with our first baby in law school, gave birth to my first son a week before the start of my 3rd year of law school.
Wow. So I want to stop you right there. You have juggled a lot, and I'm sure there's probably moms, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, et cetera, out there who can kind of relate to that. And like, how did you do it? You must have had so much focus to stay on track, getting pregnant and in law school, et cetera. What were some of your challenges early on? And then we'll talk about, how you overcame them.
I think one of my challenges has been a constant challenge for me. I'm getting to the point now where I'm kind of getting over it, but my challenge was kind of external. It was what everybody else was saying. I can remember people, assuming that there was no way I was going to finish law school. And it was just kind of like, she's pregnant, she's not going to finish. That thought never entered my mind. I'm very, my faith in God is pretty strong. And if I set my mind to do something, it's as good as done the day I decided to do it. So for me, there was never an option to not go back to school and not finish on time. Like I'm going to have the baby. God's going to work it out in my favor. I'm going back to school. I'm going to finish. And I did. But, that's been the story of my life. How are you going to do it? How's that? That's not going to work out. That's not realistic. The naysayers.
So how did you, and I know many people can, whether they relate to this industry or not, can relate to the people, the negativity telling you, oh, you can't do that, or oh, lots of luck, whether it's whether it's subliminal or overt, covert or overt, there's always those naysayers. Most of them are jealous, is what they are. But you had a mindset. You had a mindset and you had a strong faith. And wow, those are two powerful, powerful ingredients in the mix.
Two ingredients. If you have those two ingredients, you are unstoppable. And that's what I teach my kids, because in our society, it's a lot of the blame game. We all know America's history. We all know all that. That has nothing to do with whether or not I can succeed. If God says I could do it, it's done. And that's, I tell my kids, I said, who are you? They say, I'm a child of God. What can you do? They say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Who can stop you? They say, me. That's it. Nobody can stop you but yourself. So I'm just drilling that into them because I think it's important that they understand that. Otherwise, you live your life always looking for somebody else to blame. No, God gave you the power to get wealth. God says he'll give you, your talents will multiply exponentially. God says if he's for you, who can be against you? So it's hard. I'm not saying that it's an easy thing, especially when it's family members who are, oh, you're doing too much. You're trying to do too much. You should just do this, or, kind of like aren't you satisfied? Well, I'm content, as the Bible says I should be, because I am truly blessed. But I tell people all the time, and it's kind of like my motto. When I stand before God, he will not ask me why I left anything on the table, because I will not have left anything on the table.
You're using your gifts. There's a saying, God gave us gifts, and our gift back to God is what we do with it.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're doing, is giving back to our Creator, Almighty God, saying, God, use me. I have these gifts. And as long as you have a passion and you love what you're doing, which I can tell you do, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And that is
absolutely
so true. So, when you have to slow down or juggle or this and that. So let's talk about in that. So you've got that tenacity, you have the mindset, and that is pure, coupled with your faith in God, to keep you focused and to keep you driven and to keep you wanting to express and be the creative genius that you are, to express those gifts that God gave you. But it's hard. Like I said, it's hard. It's, it can be difficult. It can be challenging. So tell us some of the things that you wished you knew in the beginning that you know now that have helped you navigate through the balance of family, children, relationships, and being successful in these very male-dominated, powerful fields.
I would say probably the main thing I would have told my younger self is to get started sooner. And I know a lot of people would probably say, well, you've come so far, you've accomplished so much, you're 39. Yeah, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, man, where would I have been if I had started sooner? Because I tend to drag my feet on some things. I tend to procrastinate. And I tend to make excuses sometimes, for, you've done enough. You get that battle in your mind, and that's the one thing, I would tell myself to be more focused on executing. We all daydream and we daydream and we daydream. You got to go out and do it. And that's the one thing I would have moved sooner. I would have acted on what I was believing for sooner. Absolutely. That was.
Well, I'm going to interject right in there because, I have 3 kids and my baby is your age. Okay, my baby boy. So, I applaud you. I mean, you're so, you are so young to be where you're at. Everybody could say, I wish I would have done it sooner or learned it sooner or executed it sooner. But I truly believe in divine right order for everything. Yeah. And the timing was right for you to be right where you are right now. No different. But you brought up something that was, I think, key. And that is, many people think, oh, well, I can just manifest, or I can just put it out there, or I can do mantras or affirmations. No, what you got to follow it up with is a to-do list, an action item list.
Yeah, I don't know where people get that from, that's crazy. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just crazy. The Bible says faith without works is dead. You have to move. You have to move. And I'm always on, when I hear people say I'm waiting on God, I just kind of roll my eyes sometimes because I'm thinking, you got to
Well,
do
let's keep
something.
that saying, I do my best and God will do the rest. Okay. What's your best?
Yes.
God
Yes.
gives you a brain, a hand, a piece of paper. You need to put a plan together. Plan
Absolutely.
your work and work your plan, and then let it go. Yes, let it go. I get frustrated sometimes. I don't get everything off my
Right.
to-do list, the action item list, but that's okay. As long as I prioritize and I
Right.
did the things that were most important, it can go to the next day.
Right.
That's okay. But you have to be moving towards your dreams and taking small steps, because those small steps, accumulate
They
into.
accumulate, and they eventually lead us to where we want to go. But
Yep.
we can't just stand still and wish for stuff to happen. That's just
Mm-mm.
not how this works.
No, no, got to take action every day, even if you do, one thing off your list that moves you closer to where you want to be. That's powerful.
Yes.
Absolutely. Um, so what's another thing you might have wanted to share with your younger self that today? And let's kind of integrate it into the balancing the family, everything really, the whole dynamics that you're balancing. And I know many women out there are trying to balance, whether you're a single mom, a married mom, one kid, multiple kids, um, one career solopreneur, working for the man. You are juggling a lot.
It's a
And
lot. It's a lot.
yes,
And I just got back from Orlando about 11 last night, where I had, I was chasing down another business opportunity, and I tried to talk myself out of going. And, I told my husband, I said, man, it's the week before I was in trial, and I am not a trial attorney. Okay. I
no,
am a transactional attorney, but this was a longtime client who needed me to do something, do a job for them. And so I did. But it
right.
was hard because that's not my area of expertise. But it was a lot, and I was away from my kids a lot, and that was painful for me. But I got it done. And so this week here comes this opportunity. First I told him, I said, next week I'm not doing anything. Don't anybody call me. I'm not doing anything. And then this opportunity comes, and I'm like, I gotta grab it. Or I'm gonna look back and say, what if I would have tried to go after that opportunity, which I don't ever want to be in that position again. But I think when you're talking about, especially for women, we just tend to worry so much about everybody else and not ourselves. And when the year started, Kat, I said, I'm going to have a spa day once a month. Like that was going to be my gift to myself. I haven't had one spa day yet, and it's May. And so that is the one thing for us that I think we have to do a better job on, because all this it eventually affects your mental health, and you're just like exhausted, and and you're just tired. And if you get really stressed out, then you're bringing it home, and you're snapping at your husband and you're snapping at the kids, and that's not healthy for what really matters, which is what's at
No.
home. And
And I
so that,
love that you bring that up. Self-care. Self-care is so important. It's funny that you say it's May, because I belong to a membership for massage. Very particular because I'm a trained massage therapist. But here it is, May. I just took my first one, and you know how I did it? The only way I made it happen is I gifted a massage to one of my employees, and we were celebrating her 3rd year with the company, and so we did it together.
together.
Sometimes we'll make exceptions, or we'll make things happen
Yep.
if it's giving to someone else. The benefit is I got to finally get a massage for the year. But
Yep.
it reminded me, MarJuana, that if you don't put it on the calendar. And I tell my husband this too, because we work together. We work from home. We're entrepreneurs. And I said, if we don't put, the date on the calendar, if we don't put time on the calendar, it's not going to happen. We have to, you have to time block your personal life
Right.
sometimes, or
Right.
you will become unbalanced. And it's not really, we call it self-care, but it's really family care. It's relationship care, because when we take care of ourselves, we're better for our kids, we're better for our clients, we're better for our relationships. And don't you find that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
And
I want you to make a commitment to, before the month's out, to make a spa day.
Okay. I promise. I'm going to do it.
Okay. Even if it's, we have a place here in the Woodlands. I know you're not near the Woodlands, but I found this little place and she does nothing but foot massages. Little Asian gal gives the most incredible foot
Really?
massage. An hour. No, she throws in like the shoulders and stuff, but it's not. It's just focusing on your feet. I don't know. I just always since
You
my
have to
kids
send
are
me her
little.
information.
I will. When you're in the, I will send you her information and make a note right here. Best incredible like hour you will ever spend, and very reasonable too. Like something like $55.
Okay.
Like crazy, yeah. So self care is so important to stay balanced. Absolutely. And let's talk about support. You say your husband's very supportive. Um, how would you, what would you suggest to women who maybe they have less than the best support at home? I know eons ago, I kind of came from that. I was, maybe that's how I became so strong. It was just like single mom of 3 kids. It's like I didn't have family support. What would you recommend for women out there who don't have a lot of support? What would you recommend that they do?
That's kind of like the story of my life, Kat, and how I became just the way that it all worked itself out. Because I grew up in a home I have an older sister and a younger sister, and my mom and dad divorced when I was in college. And I tell people all the time, when growing up, as you get older, you appreciate things and people more.
Yes.
And my dad and I butted heads a lot, but I appreciate that man so much at this point for reasons that are conflicting. But he always told us, be independent, never depend on a man, be independent. I mean, he drilled it into us. And when he and my mother divorced, he really tried to leave her with nothing. That was like his intention. And I tell people all the time, he showed me better than he could ever tell me why I needed to be independent. So from a young age, I was very driven to always be able to stand on my own 2 feet. And I teach it to my daughter even today, but it was funny because God blessed me with a husband who was never like that. I never needed to be independent. He was always there, always supportive. But in the beginning of our marriage, it kind of created a conflict because I was so headstrong and I wanted him to know that I was independent,
Oh, I relate to that. Yeah. After being a single mom for so many years. Yeah. I told my husband, I can do everything for myself. So you have to, and I'll bet your husband is strong because I told my husband, I said, being a strong woman, I know it was a great filter because it kept out weak men that really were not a good fit. So when I met my husband, it was like he was stronger than me, but he knew when to be strong. And strong women, you think strong women don't, but strong women underneath, they want someone to at the right time go, I'm going to make that decision for you, or come on, honey, let's go this way, or I want to lift you up that way. And I'll bet your husband's like that too.
It's like God really made him for me. Like God made your husband for you because you're absolutely right. And I have some friends whose husbands are like, oh, I'm the primary breadwinner and you should do more to help me. But that's really just a bunch of bull, Cat, because they couldn't handle a strong. I tell people all the time, they couldn't handle a strong woman because strong women, you have to treat them right because they don't need to be there. So you have to treat them right.
Exactly.
So that's my husband. And when you said he like a man who knows when to take control, like for instance, I'll give you a quick story. The last baby that we had been trying to have this baby forever. And I had 2 miscarriages and it just wasn't working out. We tried the whole IVF deal. That wasn't working out. And we were going to go back to IVF. But when COVID happened, they shut everything down. They said no elective procedures. We're done here. So it was kind of, my husband looked at me and he said, well, what are we going to do now? And I said, I don't know. And he said, and he's really a passive guy for the most part. But he said to me, you know what, MarJuana? We're not going back to IVF. If God wants us to have this baby, God is going to give us this baby. And usually I would have, said, no, I want to make this decision. But something in me just said, and I just said, okay, baby. And I just I just agreed. I let him make that decision, and I agree with him. Kat, I was pregnant the next month. And
Wow.
it said something to me about God. To me, God was saying, MarJuana, you see what can happen when you just, submit.
Go.
There's something you just have to submit.
When you let go, there's a book I recommend it. It's called The Ecstasy of Surrender by Judith. I'm looking at the book right now. Judith Orloff. She's an MD. And, of all the enriching books that I've read and self-awareness, et cetera, that message keeps like to the forefront to me, and I think especially because I, like you, I'm take charge, take action, make things happen, yada, yada, yada. But the best things happen when you do that, and then you surrender and you let go, and you take a breath and you let go and let that divine right order happen. And it's amazing what happens.
It's amazing. Yes. And that's my husband. And he does, when he knows a decision needs to be made, he'll take it out of my hands, and I'm good with that. We have really, our bond has grown. I think we're a lot stronger than we used to be. He is super supportive. I tell people all the time, he worked for the refinery for almost 20 years, and he really has a very healthy nest egg there in his retirement. And he'll sign wherever I ask him to sign. And that's been our marriage. And that's the way that I have been able to build, which we hadn't even gotten to that yet. At this point, we own probably about $10 million worth of real estate. And, he just completely trusts me. He sees the vision that I have. He knows my faith in God. He has his faith in God. And, if I say I want to do something, it's just kind of like, okay, well, tell me what I need to do. Tell me how I can help. We've never had that relationship where it's been his money or my money, or it was always ours. And whatever I needed, it was just kind of like, tell me where to sign, baby, and he just completely trusts me. And I wouldn't be where I am if he didn't have that kind of attitude and that support. We wouldn't have made it anywhere near this far. So.
Absolutely. You're stronger together, pulling your energies and your talents together. That's amazing. So let's talk about, we've got about maybe 8-9 minutes left on the conversation here. Let's talk about the male-dominated industry, and not to bash anyone or any sexuality or any industries, but what are some of the things that you've had to overcome when negotiating or dealing in the industries that you're in that are male-dominated?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the law. I'll run through that one really quickly.
Okay.
I was with a law firm, a very prestigious law firm, for almost 10 years. And I think it was really just kind of the attitude of people who, people sometimes feel like they get to decide what's success for you. And I guess that's normal. I don't know, but it seems like it was pretty normal to them. And they're like, you got to do this to make partner. You got to do that to make partner. They didn't care that you had kids at home. It was just kind of like, you should be here all the time. And, just being who I am, I went in there with a certain mindset that never changed. And I can remember one of the partners told me once, he's like, the other partners, they think that you have a chip on your shoulder. And I was, maybe I do. I don't know. But my mindset was God, family, work. And I didn't care what they thought about it. If they wanted to fire me, I was like, well, I know where the door is. But those are my
why did they think you had a chip on your shoulder?
I think because I didn't care what they thought. That's what I think. I've always been headstrong, and I've always been the kind of person who would tell you what my priorities were. And I've never been ashamed of my faith in God. And so and I say all the time, God is my source, not any job, not any client, not any tenant. God is my source. And if one door closes, he'll open a window. He's going to provide for me. And so I guess it was kind of arrogant, to be honest, but it was kind of like, I'm going to do my work. When I'm done with my work, I'm going to go home. I'm not going to be the associate who sits in her office and watches the parking lot waiting for whoever to leave so I can feel comfortable going home while my kids and my husband are at home doing what? Like, no, I did what I was supposed to do, and now I'm going home. If you don't like it, you'll never make partner. I don't care. I don't care. Those are my kids. That's my husband. I've done my work. I've fulfilled my duty. I'm going.
you had your priorities, and everybody's priorities might be different. I think most people are close, if not what yours are. I've always said, I don't really take a lot of value of what you think. I play to an audience of one.
Absolutely.
And so what does that mean? It's not arrogant. It just means I'm following my heart. I'm following my truth. My truth in my heart is probably more likely different than yours.
Yeah.
What's important to you. So everybody, needs to hear that, follow your truth. If you don't know what your truth is, get some quiet time and find out what your truth is. Years ago when I was in telecommunications, we had some excellent training on time management, the pyramid of, I think it was Ben Franklin. And it always stuck with me. You start off with the base of the triangle, which is your values. And then we go up the ladder to, mental, physical, spiritual, career, etc., the different categories of time management. And the biggest discourse or disconnect that I see that people have really goes back to time management, because if what you put on your, on your calendar is not coming from your values, i.e. God, family, etc., and there's nothing on your calendar, then you can say all you want that God's important or family's important or whatever, but if you're doing 100% work and you're never with your family and you're never taking time to connect with Source, you're going to feel disconnected, discombobulated, and not at ease at yourself and not really know what it is.
Yeah. And I think we, especially in America, I think we get so, focused on becoming rich, or, there's so many people who have millions and millions of dollars and no one to share it with, or, who get sick and no amount of money can save them. And the relationship with God has got to be priority number one for me anyway. And that's what I teach my kids. Your relationship with God has got to be priority number one, because when we all close our eyes, we can't take any of this stuff with us, so we had better be involved with God, because we're going to face him. It's just a matter of time.
Absolutely. And whatever God means to you, get connected with that, whatever God means to you, Source. Because tomorrow's not promised, and we don't take anything with us. The man don't care. When you leave, you're replaceable.
Yep.
Critical, very critical.
So one other thing I'll mention is that, when I was at the law firm, and everybody there was pretty much great, but anytime I felt like maybe there was some discrimination, I always tended to think it was because I was Black. And at the time, I was pretty sure I was the only Black attorney there, until one day one of my colleagues, another female lawyer, a white lawyer, walked in, and she boo-hooed, telling me how she felt. And I said, it's because I'm a woman. I just always assumed it was the Black. And
right.
Maybe it was because I was a woman, because I never realized that she was experiencing too. So that was really eye-opening for me. I was like, this is a female thing. So I don't know. That was really surprising.
And it would be natural for you to think, being the only Black woman, to think that. But you and I chatted pre-show. My corporate days started in the 80s, and I guess I was a little bit of a women's liber even back then. And as I was outselling everyone, all my male colleagues, etc. And back then they did big trophies, and I had a 3-foot trophy they wanted to present to me with the yellow page book in hand, and it was a guy. And I said, this is not representative. I saw a lot of ads for you guys. I need you to put a skirt on her. Of course, newsflash forward. Heck, I can remember in high school. I'm going to date myself now, but you couldn't wear pants. And so back in the late 60s, 70, I was like, on the bandwagon. Of course, then you could only wear suits, but you could not wear pants to school. So it's kind of reversed. It's that whole, don't tell us what to wear, but they did change the trophy out with a
Well, that's
to make
good.
it look representative of a female.
That's good. Yes, absolutely.
Now the lines are muddied, even more complex than we can ever think of. But we've come a long way.
Yes, ma'am, we have.
Yep. But it is real discrimination against women. In a male-dominated world, especially construction, real estate, construction. Can be challenging. But I think as more people and more men become aware, because our world has changed so much. I mean, think back in our parents' and grandparents' days. Men never changed a baby. Men never cooked a meal. They didn't do domestic things. And I think men are becoming more sensitive to that. To go, hey, I need to share, and I want to be involved in my spouse's, and my children's life. It isn't just the woman does everything.
Right. And that's really unfortunate that a lot of men do feel that way because they're missing out on something. And I think by the time they realize it, it's too late. The kids are all grown up and they've missed a lot.
So all you guys out there listening, be involved. Your kids grow up so quick. It's such a joy and enrichment to share in that parenting and the growth of your children, and growth of your businesses, your spouse's business. It really does enrich, I think, the whole family dynamic. And I think we're going to see, this is my prediction, I think we are seeing more and more people go, I want to get off the hamster wheel and working for the man, and I want to start something of my own, something I have a passion for. And I do see that spouses are going to support their spouses, spouses supporting spouses. That could be another show. In building a career where they can call the shots if they want to go to a children's parade at school, or they need to go to help at the classroom, or whatever. You have that freedom when you're working for yourself, that you can make those priorities, right?
And that was absolutely the turning point for me when when it was hard to be there and be involved in those things. Because I'm telling you, Kat, as you know, they grow up so fast. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to be there. And that's when I left that law firm and went out on my own. And it's been almost 4 years. September makes 4 years, and I haven't regretted it a single day.
You haven't looked back. Well, congratulations. Yeah, I know it's and the universe and God has blessed you with the success that you've had, because again, it comes back to when you're following your truth, when you're following your heart, and making your priorities a priority, the universe rises up. The universe is self-correcting, and God sees that and says, "Yep, no, I'm going to lift you up because this is a good thing. This is a good thing. It's all about love, spreading the love."
Spreading the love.
Well, thank you so much, MarJuana. We're right at a little bit past our 30 minutes. I thank you so much for joining. Great information. Yes, you are so welcome. I'm glad that we connected, after this time. And I think the message is just so poignant that so many people need to hear it. If you're listening to this and you know someone who'd like to glean some wisdom from our talk today, please share it. And this will be posted on our YouTube channel, To Doll by Cat, within about 48 hours. You are the 75th episode, by the way. Congratulations.
Wow.
So we have 75 other episodes, topics from color, design, staging, to sex.
I'm going to go find that one.
Yeah, go look at that. Yeah, Brian Deming, he did one on sex, because, all things happen at home. If you or someone would like to be a guest on my show, I'm looking for all things that happen at home, which everything happens at home. Solopreneur, entrepreneur, living, dwelling, selling, you name it. Anything that happens to a home or in a home, we'd like to chat with you. And I particularly like to showcase folks that, have stories about starting their business and the challenges and triumphs that they've gone through. So until next week, and stay tuned for next week, because I have a lovely lady on who is going to share. She is a stylist, a personal stylist. So if you have some interest in that, hop on next week. Miss Jada will be joining us next week to talk about that. Until next week, stay positive, stay hopeful, and stay connected. And thank you so much for connecting with me and Miss MarJuana today. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend, everybody. I lost my, oh, there it is. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye-bye.